Yeah, so I guess Jonathan will probably know more of the details, but as far as I understand it, is that the Firearms Control Amendment Bill, the biggest thing that people were concerned about, although it's not the only thing in the bill that was problematic, was that it was going to say that self-defense is no longer a valid reason to acquire a firearm license for. That was the gist of it. Currently in South Africa, you can acquire a license legally for a firearm for self-defense. Believe hunting. I'm not sure if there's a recreational license, a security license, and so forth. So there's a few categories. Obviously, self-defense is the go-to one, given that South Africa is like the fourth most homicidal state in the world, the third most rape-centric place in the world. So there's a strong interest in getting a firearm for nothing else than to defend yourself. Now, Bheki Cele thought no that, and this is probably the ANC sentiment, is that no, but it's the social contract says that the state must have a monopoly on violence and that it's the state's responsibility to protect people, and therefore we can't have people running around like the Wild West protecting themselves. Of course, they ignore entirely the fact that we may as well not have a police service in this country. I think it would do us all a better service if they just abolish the SAPS. I've never felt safe seeing a SAPS vehicle. I've always felt a bit more threatened.
Yeah, and it seems like the criminals only
Yeah.
steal guns from them. So
Yes.
basically, the state is
Yeah.
only providing the criminals guns through them.
Yes, yeah. If the police themselves aren't shooting at you because they're helping the criminals, then it's the criminals shooting at you of guns they got from the police. So we have no police force in this country. We have a very well developed private security industry, which I never cower in fear when I see a private security guard. I always think, wow, I feel safer now. We have that going for us. And this doesn't sit well with our government, and they wanted to take away this privilege to a firearm for self-defense. But that's not the only thing they did. They're also regulating private security companies now, saying, I think in the newest act, I think it's a private security industry regulation act or something. It requires private security firms to have majority South African ownership, because we don't want a foreign private security invasion or something in South Africa. I have no idea what their reasons was for this silly invasion, but the point is they're curbing the health of the private security industry as well. So if you're asking whether the ultimate intention of government, and Bheki Cele in particular, is eventually to have a disarmed South Africa entirely, I would say yes. I think he's actually said that, and I don't think he's the smartest tool in the box. So I think he may have just misspoken, but I think he has said that we want to disarm the civilian population. I think he has said that. So I think that is their ultimate aim. I don't think they're going to succeed in South Africa. As someone who works in public policy, a lot of the positions that I have to take are often framed in a racial way. So I am against expropriation and so forth. And when I speak against it, then predictably the interviewer on the radio show or television brings in a racial aspect. A lot of the callers bring in racial aspects. But on firearm rights, none of that. When I speak in favor of firearm rights, maybe the journalists interviewing me may have an issue, but the callers, black, colored, Indian, are all in favor of firearm rights. I've never interacted with a caller who is against firearm rights. So this is something that really cuts across the racial divisions that we have. I think most South Africans are pro firearm rights, even though they don't have firearms. And that's a brilliantly good thing, because that means the chances of them succeeding in disarming the civilian population are slim. And I would encourage everyone who feels comfortable around a firearm to probably start the process of acquiring one. The police is not going to come and save you. Get yourself prepared to protect yourself, your family, and your property, and help us rid the earth of filthy criminals who have no intention other than killing you, given the bloodlust among South Africa's criminals. So yeah, the government is definitely not the friend of liberty when it comes to self-defense and to firearms.
If I may say on the amendment bill, the government didn't just go after self-defense, although that was a very big part of it. Because as Martin said, yes, you get the Section 13 license, which is the self-defense, one firearm, which is just silly. Why on earth should it be one? What if it breaks? Now you have to license a new one, 3 and 4 months. Okay, you've already proved a need for a self-defense firearm. Now you have to do it again. So this is one of the complete ludicrous aspects of it. Then there's Section 14, which I don't really need to talk about because it's very rare. Section 15, occasional sport, very common. You can license up to 4 firearms, 2 of which may be a handgun, and it includes Section 13 in that count. So if you have Section 13, then Section 15 slots reduce from 4 to 3. Then there's 16, dedicated status. You can own an unlimited amount of firearms, or at least as many as you can prove a need to own. And then it goes up to Section 20, which is the security, private security company licenses. Well, not private security, it's just business purposes. It includes security companies, film and theatrical armories, and then the Section 21, which are temporary licenses. So if an American sports shooter wants to come and compete in South Africa, for example, and bring his own competition pistols with him, then he would ask for a Section 21 permit, and then it'd be an export-import permit, and it's a very long bureaucratic process. But point is, he would have a license while he's here. At least that's I understand how Section 21 also works. So the government went after Section 13. They just deleted it outright. Gone, finished, klar, not going to happen. Doesn't matter if you live in the most violent part of Nyanga or wherever, and if you're in the middle of the Karoo and the nearest police station is like 60 kilometers away, doesn't matter. No license for self-defense purposes. Then they also went after the rest of the provisions somewhat directly, but also through stealth. So reloading or making your own ammunition at home, for example, was severely curtailed, and that by that on its own would just decimate sporting and hunting in its entirety. Ammunition is very expensive, and so a lot of professional shooters, or even very dedicated hobbyists, turn to manufacturing their own ammunition. So they buy a press, they buy the cases, the lead bullets, powder, primers, etc., and they put it together themselves. So if you can go through hundreds of rounds easily in a dedicated practice session. And if you're not practicing, well, then you're not getting really better at your sport. So if you get rid of that, well, then you've just completely gutted an entire section by itself. They also wanted to introduce limits to the Section 16. Because presently, like I said, it's unlimited, as many as you can prove a need for. And so that fell away. I don't know the exact numbers they reduced it to. I mean, I could go look at them, but that would take a minute or two. So yeah, there was a lot of by stealth. And even earlier, either earlier this year or maybe even last year or the year before, there was a mooted amendment bill to the, I think, PSERA, Private Security Industry Regulator Act, or whatever body the statute they were created by, that sought to regulate how security companies could use their firearms. In other words, they could only acquire revolvers and those sorts of things. So that was ultra vires from the start, because the act was meant to regulate private security. It was not meant to regulate firearm usage or anything like that. And yeah, sure, like the criminals have AK-47s and maybe an RPG, but yes, let's give them something from World War I. Why don't we just give them a board shot while we're at it, a flintlock musket or something? And yeah, that's what I could say on the amendment bill. It was sweeping, it was very wide, it was a complete rewrite of the Firearms Control Act. They even changed I think the preamble and the purposes of the act to a very draconian sounding sentences, choices of words. Again, I can't recite them off the top of my head, but they weren't in the current fluffy, flowery language that they're in. They were very unambiguous in what they were trying to do.